Welcome to today's episode of TN Talks with myself, Owen Smith.
Today we are joined by a local director and teacher, Keith Homer.
So, thank you, Keith, for joining me today. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Odd times we're living in, but I'm managing all right, actually. We're okay. Well, I was about to say I've never experienced anything like this, but then no one has. There's never been anything quite like this before. So, yeah, I'm a bit worried about the great unlocking happening a bit too sharp for my liking, actually.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
But my wife runs a nursery, so she hasn't been 100% locked down anyway. She's been open pretty much the whole time. So we are kind of used to the outside world.
Yes, not complete isolation, not gone slightly mad yet. So, Keith, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? Did you grow up in Redbridge or?
No. I'm a West Midlander.
Oh, really?
I was born and bred in Wolverhampton, where my mum still lives, who's 91.
Right.
And yeah, I'm born and bred there. My interest in the world of drama and theatre came from when I lived there. And actually, it's a dull story because it's the common story, which is I was inspired by a drama teacher at school. You know, early on in my school career, I had no idea what I was going to do. But actually, when I met him, I did begin to think, you know, could I be a drama teacher? I quite like what he's doing. I wouldn't mind spending my days working with students like he's doing. I spoke to him and he said, yeah, why don't you give it a go? And actually, that's what happened with me.
Really?
Yeah, that's how it started. So it's boring in that sense. There's nothing hugely inspirational, apart from this drama teacher who was hugely inspirational for me. When I was in the sixth form at school, I really got into very much Gilbert and Sullivan.
Right.
Now, that was unfashionable, really, for drama bods like myself. It certainly was when I went to Bretton Hall, that, you know, somebody like me might be interested in Gilbert and Sullivan. But I was. You couldn't do A-level drama or theatre studies or performing arts. They didn't exist. So I really did more and more Gilbert and Sullivan. I was in 3 G&S societies at the same time, I remember. And there was one show, I played Coco in the Mikado, which is the signature part, really, for somebody like myself. And this is the story. I gave a performance one evening. This was in Birmingham. And my parents were in that night. And there was a knock at the door. It's one of those stories. There was a knock at the door at the end of the show. And a woman said to me, she said, oh, could I have a word? And I said, yes. My parents had come in by that point. And she said, you won't know me, but I was very interested in your performance. And I worked for the Doily Cart, which, as you know, was the huge company in the world. And she said, oh, and we're auditioning in Birmingham in a few weeks, and I think you should audition. And in those days, I would have given my right arm and my right leg to be in the Doily Cart. And anyway, she gave me the details. And this is a Billy Elliot story, actually, because I decided I'd go for it. And I do remember my dad taking a day off work. My mum came with us, sitting on the stairs at the Alexander Theatre, huge theatre, carpeted staircase, and we were all sitting on there. And I was called in onto the main stage, and I gave a couple of songs, and they asked me to do a speech, and I worked on a little scene with somebody, and there was a panel sitting out there, and a lovely, soft-faced, elderly woman with white hair, soft voice, and she said, oh, that was lovely. Oh, thank you so much. And then she asked me the $64 million question, which HR tells you mustn't ask anymore, which is, oh, if we offered you a place in the company, would you accept? And I don't know why I said it quite then. I just said, I think I'd have to think about it. And I don't think that was the answer they were looking for. And she said, oh, really? And I said, I'd like to think about it, yes. And she said, all right, why don't you go out there and think about it for a few minutes and then we'll call you in later. And I did go out there, and my dad was sitting there cynic. As I walked out, he said, how was it? Good? How'd you do? Was it good? And I explained what had happened, and I said, I wanted to think about it. And he said, think about? What do you want to think about? This is what you've come for. But they were nothing other than perfectly supportive, my parents. And my dad said, whatever you go with, we're behind you. Yeah. Whatever decision you make, we're supportive. Anyway, I was called back in. I walked on the stage and she said, now, Keith, did you think about it? And I said, yes, I've thought about it. And she said, and what have you decided? And I said, I think I've decided that the answer would be no, thank you. Again, not what she expected.
No.
And I can remember them having a little chat amongst themselves. She looked back up at me and she said, do you mind me asking why you've rejected us? And she said, I'd just be very interested. And all I said was, there's just something else I'd rather do. And she said, well, that must be very exciting. I wonder what it is. And I said, absolute 100% truth. I just said, I really just want to be a drama teacher. And she looked at me and she said, well, I think you'll make a marvellous drama teacher. And I walked out off stage. I hit the wings. And when I got to the wings, I broke down. I broke down. I was in pieces. And I walked out to my parents, and the woman who'd been showing us in and out, secretary, said to me, oh, Keith, I don't know whether you'd be interested now, but they were going to offer you a place. And I'm sure if you went back in there now, I'm sure the offer is still on the table. And I just turned away and walked down the stairs. I went away to become a drama teacher. That's how determined I was. Amazing. To get into this world of drama education.
That's amazing. So how did you end up then in Redbridge?
When I qualified, I got a job in Birmingham, and a friend of mine who'd been a student with me, Steve, a great friend of mine, he phoned me up and he said, oh, there's a job in Redbridge. Now, Redbridge in those days was a bit of a flagship authority for educational dramas, education in the arts, frankly. But and the reason being drama in education was so big is because of this drama centre. And I really wanted to get it plugged into that if I could. And I was still quite young. I'd only been a teacher a year, but I applied for head of drama at Seven Kings High School, got the job, and I was there maybe 12 months, I think, and a job came up at the drama centre. And to be honest with you, that was the job everybody like me wanted. And it just dropped into my lap. It was very difficult. I had to interview for it. I remember jumping through hoops trying to get that job, but I got it. And I was there for 36 years. I never once thought about working anywhere else. I've never wanted to work anywhere else. I never did, and I still don't now.
And what sort of was your highlight of your times at the drama centre?
So many of them over that period of time. Of course, the great highlight for me, the greatest of them all, was when I became head. You know, because I'd been there. It wasn't the same job after all those years. Even when I was an advisory teacher, the job changed, and then it changed again, and then developments happened in the world of the theatre and in education, and changed again. And so the job was evolving the whole time. But then when I became head, I could put into place things that I wanted to put in place. So that would be the supreme highlight for me. And one of the things that I really wanted to do, I mean, there were a few things, but was to up the ante on theatre. We'd always been the best drama centre. In fact, when I started, there were drama centres all over the place. But when I took over as head, we were the only drama centre left. They all closed down. Everything, every single one of them shut. But what I wanted to do is then to push it forward. I mean, my predecessor, Jo, she maintained great relationship with schools. I knew it was important to carry that on.
Mm.
She did have professional theatre coming in and out, but I wanted to push that more and more. And I instituted this thing, which we called Thursday night is theatre night. So there'll be a regular, a regular performance by a professional company in the centre every Thursday evening to support drama students, essentially. So drama students who were studying GCSE or A-levels could come in and see live, good quality theatre right on their doorsteps. Because everybody thinks, oh, we're right near London. There's so much to choose from, but it's hugely expensive, of course. Whereas we could do really good stuff right on your doorstep and students could afford it. And I think a year or so after I started that, I appointed Johnny, my colleague of many years, Terry. He retired. Johnny, I appointed him, and I really boosted up his job description to developing the theatre, to programming more and more theatre. And that's what we did. So I pushed that as my big early development. So the Drama Centre wasn't seen simply as a centre where children came studying educational drama or supportive of GCSEs, or we weren't just supportive of A-levels. We were now providing professional theatre regularly.
Other than becoming the head as a sort of a proudest moment, what was one of your greatest achievements, do you think?
No doubt about it, in my view, putting together that team, the team of people, which is still essentially the core team.
Mm.
I appointed Johnny. I had Chris and I had Ben, but I appointed Sally.
Mm.
I appointed Emily and David and Gemma and Ian to do work with me. To put together that core team is my great achievement. I'm so pleased that they're still there. And I do remember Marge Lovegrove saying to me years ago after Hugh had retired, he said, I haven't worked there for all these years, but I still put together that team and they're still there. And I kind of understand that now, because it's still essential. Yes, there are new people like yourself, which is the way it ought to be, but it's still my team and they're still brilliant. It became a building which is a place where magic took place. Mm. And that was the other thing. We developed the building. The course that you now run, the college that you now run, is in the studios around the back of the building, but we didn't used to have any of that.
Really?
The Drama Centre was half its size in those early days. It was, then there were changes, like we then developed the Telford studio. I got some funding. I got Section 106 funding and developed another theatre. Because as we were doing more and more, it became very apparent we needed another performance space. We didn't have a performance space. We had 2 rooms which needed knocking into one, but I didn't have the money for that. I got some money together and, the Telford studio was created. Then the Teacher Centre in Ilford closed down, and the director had the idea that the Teacher Centre would move into the Drama Centre. As the junior school moved into its new buildings, rooms at the back became empty. They got developed. Then the Teacher Centres essentially moved out, and they belong to us. Mm. Well, I say us as if I'm still there, but they now become part of the drama. They are part of the Drama Centre. So the building was never like it was. It was very small. It was this big, and now it's this big. And I'm very pleased to have played the major part, really, in all of that.
I always love it's whenever I'm doing the parents' tour of the building, the first words any of them ever say is, "Oh my God, it's huge."
Yeah, it gets bigger.
And because they walk through that first bit,
it gets bigger, but the more where am I going now? It's a fabulous building for that.
Now you're also still very heavily involved with adult group.
Yes, my first real love in that kind of extracurricular work, as it were, was the youth theatre. I ran the youth theatre with colleagues for 20 odd years. And anyway, I don't know, maybe 25 years ago, I started the adult workshop as well. Well, I keep saying actually, I wasn't the head then. I wasn't making the decisions. My predecessor, Joe, was. But I mean, you know, it wouldn't have happened if I didn't want to do it. So I started the adult workshop as well. And so for many, many years, I worked 2 nights on the youth theatre, 1 evening on the adult workshop. So yeah, and I've been the director of that company for all the years it's existed, actually.
And that's had fantastic opportunities because it still travels around Europe, doesn't it? It does the Europe travel.
Which brings me to another one of the developments that I wanted to reintroduce. We always had an international profile. And all of this came from Hugh Lovegrove. I don't know whether you know of Hugh Lovegrove. I
know of him.
Let me tell you, he was a great friend, a great mentor of mine, and he was Mr. Redbridge Drama Centre. He established it. It was his brainchild. He used to be the drama advisor when advisors were kings. All the authorities had advisors for all subjects in those days, and we had Hugh Lovegrove was our drama advisor, and he happened to be really the king of all drama advisors in the country. And one of his great passions was this work with companies and organisations overseas. And when I took over, I wanted to reintroduce that kind of stuff, which is why in 2007 I reintroduced the International Youth Theatre Festival, where we had companies coming into Redbridge from Romania, from Slovenia and the Czech Republic. And then we did the same again in 2010. And alongside all of these things, because the flagship company really for me was always the youth theatre. But my adult workshop, I also thought, why do we need to confine it simply to the students? Let's go with the adult workshop. And I've taken them now on tour to Lithuania, to Ireland, to the Czech Republic on numerous occasions. And it's something that I do think is good. I really enjoy that kind of thing. And there are drama centres in Czech Republic, in Japan, in Hungary, built on the Redbridge model. The one in Czech still runs, still operates. I don't know about the others, but yeah, we were always being visited by people from overseas to see how we did it and what does the drama centre look like and what do you do in there, and then going away to their place and setting up a new one. So yeah, I've always had an interest in that international connection, and yeah, and I do it now with my adult workshop.
Where were you due to go this year?
We weren't going this year. I was taking another little company which I run with Michael, my colleague Michael Wood.
Yes. Is that Scrambled Egg?
Scrambled Egg. We set up, this is when I left the drama centre, we set up a little company that Michael and I run now, especially to take theatre to international festivals. And we've done that on a number of occasions. We were due to go to Florida, to a lovely festival we went to 2 years ago. Of course, it got cancelled. But we have the invitation to go in 2 years' time.
Oh, amazing. How do you find sort of like the European theatre scene?
I sit on the committee for IATA,
right.
ITE, which is the International Theatre Exchange, and we are the UK centre of IATA.
Right.
Now, I mentioned Hugh Lovegrove a few minutes ago. Hugh was the president, the world president of IATA, 2 times over. And I've always sat on that committee. And so I do see quite a lot of international work in the world of the amateur theatre, quite a lot, often popping to festivals. You know, a couple of years ago, I was at the World Festival in Monaco, and you do see an amazing range of work. At one end of the spectrum would be something which was utterly professional in look and standard and values. And on the other hand, at the other end of the spectrum, you think, why would you want to bring that to a festival? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what my experience is, there's a complete range, a huge range. But I come to it from the world of educational theatre, which is where I'm from in my bones. And we were the country that led the world, really, in educational drama in schools, which is why a lot of these people used to come over here to discover how we were doing things. But don't forget, we were the country that put drama at the centre, or tried to, and we encouraged it. The borough encouraged us to sell it, to put drama at the centre of the curriculum, particularly the primary curriculum. So we didn't see it simply as an art form, a performance skill. We also saw it as a teaching methodology, and we at the centre, and certainly in my time when I took over as well, saw both of those as equally important, as an arts subject in its own right, but also as a teaching methodology. So that's a waffly answer to your question. My view of the my experience of it anyway, in the world of amateur theatre, is so wide-ranging. The festival that we were going to in Florida, I must say, was hugely, huge quality on show there when we were there 2 years ago. Fantastic pieces of theatre. And we took a scrambled egg to a festival in Germany a couple of years ago as well. Some wonderful work there. And this is where you kind of hook into other people, and you like, I like to see the way that people are approaching things. And
so as a sort of director side of your work, really, is there any writers that you go, I just love their work? As a director, give me their plays, I'm happy.
Jim Cartwright for certain.
Yeah.
David Farr. I love David Farr's plays, especially if you want to do a piece of story theatre. And I've done that kind of stuff with my workshop a lot. And there's another guy, what was his name? Oh yeah, William Shakespeare. It's always a good fallback position to think, why don't we look again at Shakespeare? And I've done those kind of projects with the professional actors at the drama centres, with Michael. Michael is a brilliant director, especially with Shakespeare. If you need anybody at your college to come and talk to the students about directing Shakespeare, just speak to Michael. Right. He's as good as anybody you'll ever get. Plus, he's brilliant with students. So we've done work on Shakespeare. So he always leaps to mind as well. The other thing I tried to do with my workshop is create original pieces, things that we've devised. Usually we devise like the show a couple of years ago, we devised it as a group. In the end, somebody like me scripts it, and then I can kind of turn it into a piece which is coherent. But I like to do original pieces as well.
So if I said you can direct any show, what would it be?
If I could direct any show?
Yeah.
Almost certainly. It depends who with. Can I ask you that question?
You can have your dream cast.
Okay, then Romeo and Juliet.
Really? Who with?
Who would I cast?
Yeah.
Or which company?
Either.
Don't know. I'd choose a whole bunch of unknowns, I think. And I would love it to be a show that could tour. On the other hand, it would be great if they would let me take it off the road and put it in the Olivier. I think I'd love that.
Yeah.
You know that little theatre, the Olivier? I could do something in the drama centre, then blow it up we've done that at the centre. Chris and Ian did that a couple of years ago with a show. So I'd love to do that, but I'd love to do that with Romeo and Juliet. Amazing.
You wouldn't fancy turning your hand to putting on a GNS then?
I don't think anybody would be much better than me at putting that together, actually. I've never had the company to do it. I did it when I was a student, actually, at my university. I directed a couple of them. Again, Macbeth and Iolanthe. I'm pretty good at putting together those big scale shows. I'm very good at putting together stuff with big groups, I've discovered over the years. So yeah, I could do GNS. GNS would, I'd find that interesting, I think.
And what's next for you after all this madness comes to its end?
I definitely want to carry on with my workshop because I love them as a company. And we're always looking for new members. But, you know, it's a big company, 20.
Mm.
You must know, finding material for 20 people
is a nightmare. I have to say, it's where musicals are easier because people are happier in the background just doing a kick routine. Whereas actually plays, you need to find, it's hard.
Yeah, I agree with you. Finding material is very difficult if you want to do plays.
Mm.
I mean, we have done plays with music, and you know, we've done musical shows like "Oh What a Lovely War" we did a few years ago. I did with them. "Dark of the Moon" is a big favourite of mine. It's one of the greatest plays, I think, for a big company, but really, essentially, for a younger company.
Mm.
"Dark of the Moon." If anybody's looking for a good play with songs, with a big cast, you can't beat "Dark of the Moon" in my view. That's such a true. I did say to my group, I don't think it's appropriate for us to do it with you, but I can't believe I will go to my grave and never work on "Dark of the Moon" again. It's such a.
When did you last do it?
Such a favourite of mine. 20 odd years ago, I think. But you know, when you work on something which is as magical as that, it kind of stays with you forever.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
Okay.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Keith.
Yes. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.